guys, welcome to a very long overdue vlog. I know that it's probably been like maybe a month, 2 months maximum since I posted. December was really crazy. I had loads of training on, obviously Christmas shopping to do, I got ill and I have some family stuff as well, so yeah, overall really busy and just didn't really feel like making time to sit down and talk at a camera, which is one of my resolutions for this year, is actually to vlog more regularly, do about one a month, and see how it goes. So how exciting. So today I wanted to address one of my comments, thank you Liam, about basically just a vlog about why I chose community and trying to encourage others to do the same. I know I've like touched on this pretty much every single vlog I've done, but I thought it'd be helpful to just have like one with all the bits in it. Right, so first of all, I should explain that I am a newly qualified nurse. I qualified in September 2018 and I started my job also in September 2018. I work in Manchester. I can't tell you exactly where because I think it's probably best that way. I ended up joining a trust which I'd been with quite a lot throughout my 3 years of being a student, and I also was really lucky because I had 3 community placements throughout my whole year. So I had one at the end of summer in first year, one was my elective at the end of second year, and my final placement at the end of summer in third year. So I was really happy with that. I know that everyone is not as lucky as that, and a lot of people just have one experience to base everything on, and I'm really sorry if that's you. Hopefully you're one of the lucky ones. I know a couple of universities have started doing this where they have 50% of your courses in community, or there's an option to like stay only in community for your final year. Please let me know if you're one of those people, because it'd be really interesting to see whether that's like changed the way that you see your job offers and stuff. So yeah. So firstly, I want to start with one of the reasons why I love being a community nurse is the working hours. So obviously as a student, you're expected to do whatever shifts that your mentor is doing. So nights, 12-hour shifts, working weekends, working bank holidays. We didn't have to do that at my uni, but some do. And yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare. And working in community is very different. I personally do Monday to Friday, 8:30 till 5. I then do one weekend in every 4. So I really like that. It's a nice sort of balance in my sort of rota life, I guess. So I can not like always plan ahead, and I generally have like a set weekend and we can swap around and stuff. So that's really nice. I know that some areas are now doing 12-hour shifts in community, so like 8 till 8. I'm not sure how that would work. One of the nurses I used to work with, she did that, and she said that it was a bit harder in the winter because obviously you're going to people's houses and people don't tend to want to open their doors after it gets dark. I've personally not had that so far. Obviously it gets dark at like 3, but I have had a couple of patients who have been like way more wary than they need to, and I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. So again, let me know if you're also doing 12-hour shifts in community. We also have a evening nursing service and an overnight nursing service that runs between 5 and obviously 8 o'clock in the morning. So there's like, I think half an hour where you can't get access to a district nurse straight away, but I'm not sure about that. Maybe it covers. I have done some work with the overnight service and it's such a different way of working, but I'm pretty sure that because there's even less services available, it's generally only open to like more experienced nurses. I'm thinking about doing some bank like after I've done my preceptorship, just to like get my skills up a bit, but we'll see how that goes. So yeah, I have a really nice rota. It doesn't work for everybody, but I like it. That's what matters. So another reason why being a community nurse is amazing is the amount of autonomy that you have. Obviously you are a lone worker, so you'll pick up your list at the start of the day, you get to choose where you go first and generally kind of what time, unless there's specific timings for stuff, and off you go. You know, it's your job to go and prioritise stuff, Generally in our team, one of us carries the emergency mobile as well. It's usually the most experienced member of staff, but recently I've been taking it because I'm like aware that I've been in every day, because I'm one of the only full-time members of staff. So I'll be like, oh, I'll take the phone because I kind of know what's going on. And if I don't know what to do, then I can just pass it to another member of staff. Anyway, so yeah, it's really interesting. You have to make a lot of clinical decisions by yourself. Obviously, you've always got a care plan and you've always got like notes to look back on. But there's always going to be situations where you walk in and you're like, oh, something's not right. I need to change what I'm doing. So for example, the amount of I do a lot of dressings, and like the other day I was in treatment room at the weekend by myself, and a lady came in and it was just a suture removal, but I could tell straight away something wasn't right. There was loads of like dried blood around them, so I removed all of that and I could see it was really sloughy underneath, and so I immediately had to make a wound care plan and like prepare this woman to come back and remove the stitches and inform her what's going on, and told her about how to keep away, like prevent an infection and keep an eye on it. And you don't really have to think on your feet as much, and like, I mean you do, but you don't have that support with you all the time. I have actually found that really interesting, and it's been very challenging, but in a good way. You know, I've really had to engage a lot of my brain, and I've really enjoyed that. And at the end of the day, like, I've always got my colleagues at the end of the phone. Like, the amount of times I've just gone, oh, sorry, to the patient, like, just give me a second, I'm just going to give my colleague a ring, I just want to double check something. And every single time I've done that, the patient has been happy that I've double checked and I've been honest, and I've felt much better afterwards because I know that I'm making the right decision. And I know for a fact that, like, the team I have around me are really, really supportive and are always like, call me whenever you need me. So the thought that you're just by yourself and there's no support is completely wrong. I would argue that you've actually gotten more support than you would do in the hospital, like especially due to staffing. I always have someone, always, and they will always pick up the phone, even if it might be not straight away, but they will always ring me back. So that's a really nice benefit. Part of obviously making clinical decisions, and especially in community, you kind of have to make stuff up sometimes, which kind of leads on to my next part, which I didn't really realise until I started as a qualified nurse. Like, as a student, I didn't really get it as much. I for some reason, I always call it blue petering. And I, like, you know how there was like, here's what I made earlier? It's kind of a bit linked to that. Hopefully you'll see what I mean. So you've gone into someone's house, you realise that they've not got the right dressings, or the dressings they need aren't the ones that you've got because something's changed in what's going on with the wound. So you can't just have to make it up, but you have to use as much clinical basis as possible. So if you've not got like a nice foam padded dressing, chuck a bit of sterile gauze under there, because at least you've still got some padding. And I just really like that, which surprised me because I hate craft, and a lot of dressing related stuff is to do with craft, if that makes any sense. Like, you've got to be able to stick it down and put it in the right place, make sure it's supporting them properly. But yeah, I call it blue petering because I like being able to, like, I've just made this stuff out of like macaroni and bits of glue. So yeah, I've really enjoyed that part of the job, and it's something that you just don't have to do at all in the hospital because you've always got stuff, and if you don't have it, you go to another ward and you ask them. Like, you've always got the proper thing at the end of you, but you don't have that in community. You can walk in and be like, for example, the other day I was doing a peg flush and there were no 10 milliliter syringes, and I was like, what am I meant to do? There's 10 milliliters in the balloon. And it sounds so stupid, but I was like, I don't think I can use 2 5s. Surely I can. Rang up my manager and she was like, yeah, you can use 2 5s as long as you're just making sure how much you're taking out and putting in. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And it was. But I had to think on my feet and I had to make it up as I went along, and I really enjoy that. It's a very different way of working. So one of the most important things, and the best bit I would say about being in community as a newly qualified, is how many relationships you get to build with both patients and staff, but especially the patients, because you're going into their own home, and it's just a very different kind of relationship. And I found a quote on Twitter the other day that like really summed it up, so I'm just going to read that to you now. Okay, so here's the quote from Florence Nightingale, who, surprisingly, I don't like her. Go into that in another video, but this is a good quote from her. So in hospitals and infirmaries, they may say where everything is provided, it is easy to be clean and airy, orderly and godly, but look at us in our one room and a sick person in it into the bargain, and with no appliances. Here it is the trained district nurse where the trained district nurse steps in. Here in the family, she meets them on their own ground. I love that quote. I just think it really sums up like how important it is to be in community and serving the people in their own homes. It's such a privilege. Like, imagine how uncomfortable do you feel when you don't like you hear the doorbell and you're like, who is it? I don't know who it is. And you answer the door and it's me standing there in my little blue uniform, like, hello. And straight away, I'm let into the house, I'm shown around. They're often like undressing, showing me really personal parts of their body, all because I've knocked on their door. Like, what? You know, if I was in that position, I would feel so uncomfortable, but because we nurses are being seen as the most trusted profession in the UK, people just trust us, and it's such a nice thing to know that you're in that position. So I could go on about this all day, and I could probably make a whole other video about all the lovely stories I already had like collated in my 3 months of being a community nurse. Yeah, I really like that quote. I hope you enjoyed it too. So one of the final things I wanted to touch on about one of the amazing things of being a community nurse is the preconception that you have, or the misconception, I guess. When you're a student, a lot of community placements can involve sitting down and sort of waiting in the office because all the nurses are doing the paperwork, and you're kind of like left to like do some uni work or do some research or just stare into a wall if you have a really bad team. And I'm not gonna lie, I had moments of those all the way through my 3 years. Even when I wasn't on community, there's always going to be a moment as a student that you might be a bit like, I don't know what to do, I'm a bit bored. And I was really worried about that, joining like as a newly qualified. I was like, oh my God, what if I'm bored? I'm going to tell you now, there is no moment that you will be bored as a newly qualified nurse, unless you're working outpatients. No, I'm kidding. Because all those moments that you were doing your uni work, or you were sitting there and doing your research, or you were sitting there and filling out your outcomes, the nurse is doing a referral, or they're chasing up this, or they're chasing up that, or they're trying to work out the mileage, or they're trying to chase up the paycheck. There is always something to do. I have never been bored bar one of my weekends, and that's only because I didn't want to like reorganise the whole office. I've never been bored, and I think that might be something that is unconsciously putting people off, because you always base your experience of a placement on how it's going to be as a newly qualified nurse. But it's just not the same thing, you know? Just like in theatres, you're not going to be doing the same amount of stuff that you would as a scrub nurse, I guess. I don't know. I've not been in theatres. That was a really bad example to use. But I just wanted to let you all know that if you've had a community placement and you've been like, but I was a bit bored, banish the boredom. You will not be bored if you actually work there. Try to focus on other things, and like at the end of the day, being bored means that you've done your job well, hopefully, unless you're just ignoring jobs. So enjoy it, and you can sit there and be like, oh, I've done all my work, good for me, you know? So don't be bored. So hopefully that's given you a little whistle-stop tour of all the amazing parts of being a community nurse. I'm gonna do a whole vlog by the end of February, setting myself a really long deadline here, about interviews and applying for jobs and stuff. Unless I want to do it into like job applications and then interviews, let me know if you'd rather have one big one or 2 small ones. It's up to you. I just wanted to touch on, obviously, if you've watched this video and you've reached this point and thought, she sold me, I want to be a community nurse, you're going to want to stay for this bit. So I had 2 job offers, both in community. I did have another one in the hospital, but I was like, but no. And both of them, I accepted them prior to me finishing and prior to me passing my driving test. I actually passed my driving test a month before I started my job. I am very, very lucky to have found 2 different trusts that would hire me. I'm not sure if that's like the norm, but at the end of the day, if you go in there with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of passion, and you talk about how you would fit in to a community team, then you'll be fine. That's literally the best advice I can give. I've really not found any of my interviews to be like really difficult. I found them all to be like super friendly, and at the end of the day, we're in a huge nursing crisis. They want people who are enthusiastic and passionate and, you know, want to get involved. If you go in there and show that, everything else can be taught. You know, you don't have to be like, you know, the most experienced wound care nurse, or you don't have to have loads of, you know, past experience. Even in care, I came into community basically not being able to drive. I had never had any care experience before, and I'm also only 22, so I'm young and inexperienced, but they still took me on, and I'm learning every single day, and it's great. If you go in there and show your passion, they will see that too. So yeah, let me know how you found this video. If you want to know more about community or anything, then let me know. Okay, bye.